Alert, President Trump getting ready to hold a news conference any moment now in the Rose Garden. We will bring it to you live once it happens. And while we wait for that, President Trump and Joe Biden squaring off over how best to bring back jobs after the pandemic damaged the economy. The former vice president trying to slice into President Trump's polling advantage on the economy. Biden quick to criticize President Trump during his speech today.
It's gotten bad enough that even Donald Trump finally decided to wear a mask in public. I'm glad he made the shift, but Mr. President, it's not enough. We won't be able to turn the corner and get American people back to work safely without presidential leadership. Mr. President, open everything now isn't a strategy for success. It's barely a slogan. Quit pushing the false choice between protecting our health and protecting our economy. All it does is endanger our recovery on both fronts.
Biden also calling for $2 trillion in new clean energy spending.
When Donald Trump thinks about climate change, the only word he can muster is hoax. When I think about climate change, the word I think of is jobs. Science tells us we have 9 years before the damage is irreversible. We're going to make historic investments that will seize the opportunity and meet this moment in history. We're going to get to work delivering results right away on day one.
All right, Greg, let me ask you, a lot of that stuff when it comes to energy policy, do you feel like you could have heard that before, maybe in the previous administration?
Maybe, but it is. Biden economically is kind of terrifying because he is all in on the Green New Deal, including this apocalyptic 9-year vision that is not based on any science, but rather AOC-led hysteria. So we're handing our economy not over to Joe Biden, a seasoned vice president or senator. We're handing it over to Greta Thunberg in an old man suit. And that scares me. But another interesting point about when you compare economies, you know, the Democrats love to talk about how they're the masters of the safety net. And I want people to just think about what the experience of 2020 was when we had a Republican-built, Trump-designed economy that was essentially a safety net that was tested. It was actually tested, and it actually succeeded. Unlike the safety nets created by Democrats, this safety net was tested by a novel catastrophe that we've never experienced before in our lives. Nobody has starved. We have made it through. We have made sacrifices, but we are getting it done largely because of this incredible economy that allowed for a safety net to occur, to give out these payments, to make sure people were okay. This is a Republican-built safety net that just blew the doors off any Democrat safety net of the last 50 years. Meanwhile, what are the Dems pushing? An apocalyptic vision that chooses the mob over the individual. We see somebody like Trump pushing for achievement. Biden is pushing the politics of envy. And that will get us nowhere in the long term or even the short term.
Jesse, this was the second phase of the Biden rollout on his economic plan. Last week was Buy American. Today is all about energy. And if you think about the Midwest and how important it is for both candidates to try to win in 2020, how do you think Biden threaded that needle today between going after the progressives who were talking about the apocalyptic climate change issue, as Greg was pointing out, but also this idea for additional jobs in the clean energy market? Can he do that?
Biden just plagiarized Bernie Sanders' environmental plan. Or Bernie bros just put a gun to Biden's head and Biden said, fine, I'll say whatever you want me to say. I mean, this is literally AOC's Green New Deal here. $2 trillion on wind and solar. Do you really think Joe Biden or any of his people can pull it off? First of all, solar only works economically and environmentally in the United States in the Southwest. Wind power only works in the Great Plains in the Midwest. But I guarantee you, all of this trillions of dollars, it's just going to go to lobbyists and donors, and they're going to put some like windmill in Maine and a solar panel in Montana, and it's just not going to work. It's just another boondoggle because they're not smart enough to be able to pull it off. The smartest thing to say, if I were Joe Biden, would say I'd be for fracking. But he went so far left in the primary, he doesn't like fracking now because natural gas is the cleanest energy source we're ever going to have. And God blessed the United States with mountains and mountains of it. And we're just sitting on piles of it. So you can even balance a few solar panels and some windmills with this beautiful, clean natural gas and call it a day. But he just won't do it. And Donald Trump can come at him and just say, you're an economic illiterate, you don't know what you're talking about. This is basically AOC on steroids. Get out of here and let me rebuild the economy because Americans trust me more than you by double digits.
Juan, when the Biden campaign was putting out some PR right before the speech, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was also tweeting, taking a lot of credit for the speech. Does that help Biden keep his moderate label?
I think that, a lot of this back and forth over the economic policy at this moment, Dana, I don't think that it really matters a whole lot if what we're aiming at is the November election. Because I think at the moment, the urgent policy stuff leads us to a referendum on Donald Trump. And right now, Trump's beating Trump. Because if you look at big ticket items like, do we send our kids back to school in the fall? Axios, IPOS has a poll out today. 70% of Americans think that's too risky to send our kids back to school. And that includes like 79% of Democrats and 53% of Republicans. No, I'm talking about the election because I think that as we aim towards energy, as we aim towards something like how do you get this economy going for the high percentage of people, I think it's like 11, 12% now out of work. And you think about the fact that we have arguments coming from this White House over extending unemployment benefits at the end of this month. I think, again, Donald Trump is out of sync with the American people. But, it's like when 5.4 million Americans lose their health insurance. That's a big economic issue. And where's Trump? He's trying to undo Obamacare. So to me, these are urgent policy issues way beyond whether or not we rebuild the infrastructure, which I think is fairly sensible, whether we rebuild the manufacturing sector. This is what's determining the election.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, Katie, we do know that across the board, President Trump does beat Joe Biden on matters of the economy. I haven't seen it broken down too much in terms of energy. You were over at the White House today. Tell me your perspective on all this.
I was at the White House today. I had the chance to interview President Trump. He did talk about the election and Joe Biden and said that the economy will crash if Joe Biden wins the election. He talked about how Joe Biden has been in office and around Washington, D.C. for almost 5 decades, and yet now all of a sudden is hitching his wagon to this Green New Deal 2.0. And look, you can't argue, as Joe Biden has, that you want to bring back American manufacturing while also at the same time try to promise some kind of Green New Deal because the regulations in this country are ready due to the Environmental Protection Agency and a whole host of other overreach by the government have prevented manufacturing from coming back to this country. And it's going to be very expensive for the average family. Remember in 2016 when Hillary Clinton made the mistake of saying we're going to put coal miners out of business. That's exactly what this will do. Electricity prices will go up. And we've tried this before. The Obama administration, which Joe Biden was a part of, lost $500 million of taxpayer money on Solyndra, which was a solar panel company that they just gave a bunch of recovery money to that was not successful. So these two things do not go together. Yes. You can't promise manufacturing in America while also promising all of these regulations, which do not allow any of the ingenuity in manufacturing to take place here.
For viewers that have been watching for many years, you will remember the fond days when we talked about Solyndra